welcome back. We are mixing up some cover crops, grains. Basically, I figured, why am I buying all this chicken feed when I could plant some? I'm doing this chicken tractor thing. I got bad soil, but folks around here are always planting these big deer food plots. So if they can plant deer food plots, I can plant a chicken food plot. If we have to go inside the grain down later, we could do that. Or we could just wait till it starts to dry down a little bit and go to seed in the spring. And then just let them run right over it and eat it. So I'm putting in rye, which I love because it makes a huge amount of biomass and has a great root system. And I'm mixing in some pelletized clover seed. This is red clover. And I'm putting in buckwheat. The buckwheat, that's these black seeds. The buckwheat is gonna die when it freezes, but it makes a decent amount of biomass sometimes before it freezes, so we're just putting them in there. It's got some icicle radishes, got some random old packets of seed. I throw that stuff in there too. A little bit of turnips. It's always good to have a brassica in your mix. Mustard, turnips, daikons, something like that. Get that mix of species going like a kind of a weird meadow. That's good. And then I throw in triple 13. You could use triple 17 too. I learned this from a friend of mine who makes feed plots. He mixes in his fertilizer and his seed together, mixes them all up, and then spreads it all out at the same time. And normally, ideally, you would have good ground, you would have compost, you would have some manure spread out there or something like that. We don't have that. It is so bad that the geology is fighting us. And hopefully what happens here is we start to get the life into the ground. So use our triple 13 this time around, but the soil starts to get better. The clover starts fixing nitrogen, the rye puts a lot of organic matter in the ground, and over time you wean the ground off of needing so much or any chemical fertilizers, and you have healthy soil. In the case of our ground, I don't know if healthy soil is ever really possible completely, because it's pretty much just gritty sand, gritty acid sand. But it certainly is getting better as we're here, and we've only been here a year. The areas that we've cover cropped and grown gardens on and buried charcoal into and everything else have gotten better. And right now, well, we still have fertilizer available and we can buy seed easily. I figure I'll get all this stuff in and I'll fill up a bunch of that empty waste ground with food for the chickens for next year. So earlier this morning I got out on the tractor and I tilled up some areas. And then I take my handy dandy fertilizer spreader, which I think I paid $10 for from a thrift store. And I'll spread it over the areas, and then I will lightly till it back in. Set the tiller on 1 inch and then till it all back under, and the rain should take care of it from there. This is a combination now of oats with some buckwheat, some turnip seeds, and some clover. Oats just absolutely thrive in Alabama winters. So in the area where I'm further away from the house and I'm not going to be taking care of it at all whatsoever, I'm throwing these oats around. It's a really common addition to deer feed plots. So we're just going to throw them out here by the pond. But I found that the ground is so soft that it's easier to simply throw all the stuff and be done with it than it is to push it. So we planted about 6 plots of cover crops slash chicken forage slash food that the deer will eat before we get it. So we'll see what happens. There are occasional deer that come through here, but they generally seem to get herded away further down that way, or they get shot down there because there's a little hunting camp. But I think that we're gonna have plenty of grain for the chickens to use. Now, you've seen me use cover crops before. I use cover crops to improve the soil. In this case, some of these areas I care about the soil. It's areas where the ground is not being used right now that we'll probably farm on later, like in between the rows of grapes. But other spots are just crummy corner, out of the way areas of the yard that happen to have some sunshine. And I figure, hey, we get a bunch of grain growing on there, we can put the chickens over it later. And as I'm doing this too, you probably saw I till the area first, which loosens it up to 5 or 6 inches, and then I threw down the seeds with the fertilizer mixed in, and then the second time I till, I'm not tilling it down to 6 inches. If you till it down to 6 inches, you're going to lose a lot of your seed. I just set it on a low setting of maybe 1 inch, so it's just skimming the surface and turning them under, so they'll be down there in the moist soil rather than sitting on the top where nothing happens. And they just sit there and they dry out and the birds eat them and they disappear. If they get turned under right now, we had some rain last night, they should be germinating in a week or so, and we'll have these little beautiful carpets of green, and it'll be gorgeous. I hope you had fun. I had fun. Any day that I get a chance to borrow the neighbor's tractor and go tilling and stuff is a great day. I come up with things just as an excuse to drive the tractor around. It's fantastic. Before I go though, I wanted to tell you all that the book Winning the War on Weeds, a No-Till Gardener's Handbook by my friend John Moody, has been published on Good Books Publishing. That book, if you are into no-till gardening, deep mulch gardening, back to Eden gardening, and weeds are part of your life, if you want to learn how to solarize and occultate and use tarps to control weeds and do all kinds of crazy stuff, what chemicals work organically, like what organic chemicals, like vinegar and that sort of thing, and how they work, how flame weeding works, steam weeding, I mean, just any method for dealing with weeds on a small farm or garden, this book has got it. It is a fantastic guidebook, and I'm very, very happy that we get to publish it. I'm going to put a link to the book below. Please buy it and leave a nice comment for John, because he's counting on us to make this book a success. Actually, he's kind of counting on me to make it a success, so I'm sort of passing it on to you guys. If you can leave nice comments about the book, get the book if it's useful to you, I would really appreciate it. A link below, Winning the War on Weeds, and it's tons of information. Fantastic book, and I'm very glad that we can publish it. Thanks for joining me. Catch y'all next time, and until then, may your thumbs always be green.
I'm driving with the top down.